A first look at Toonboom Harmony 20. So we're starting the program. First of all, you get the splash screen. Now, unlike Adobe Animate or Flash, you have to actually create a whole hierarchy of files for saving rather than it just being one file. So I'm going to create a new scene. First of all, HDTV 1080 25. That will give me UK television. Should do. HDTV 25. That's right, 1920 by 1080. And you'll see I've got a folder here. It's empty at the moment. Just a folder ready to save all these components in here. So I'm going to browse to save the scene. I'm going to go to my desktop and go to the Toonboom Harmony one, which I've made earlier. Choose. And then I'm just going to go call it something. And then create scene. It might be a bit slow because I'm recording my screen, so we'll see. Right, so now you get this empty scene. Looks pretty much like a lot of other drawing packages. I'll just move me out of the way there. But if I go back to the folder here, you'll see now in Toonboom Harmony 20, the folder I made earlier, I've got a folder called Test, which is the scene I've just made. And inside, I've got a folder for environments, for all bits of things I might draw in there. All the frames will come into there. Don't quite know what that means, but it'll become clear. And any palettes and libraries and things that I make will be in here. So it actually creates all that for you, but you just need to make sure it's in one place. And then once you've done your work, don't move any of this, because this will be referencing the work you do in Harmony. So I'll go back to Harmony. That's the latest version, Harmony Premium. Let me go back to here. So this is your stage. These are your brushes. This is the sort of a regular sort of opening screen you'll get. You'll see you've got brushes here. You've got vector brushes and raster brushes. You can use both. So you can see you've got various different brushes here. It's quite a nice sort of feel for drawing on, and it gives it sort of a smoothness. And I'm going to select all of these. Oops. Command A or Control A will select them all, backspace and delete them. So your screen is here. If I shrink out a little bit and go say to 40%, you can see that's your actual screen. It's grey by default. You can change this in the preferences, but what you tend to do in Harmony is add a colour card. So if I go to this plus sign and add colour card, this will give me a white background. It doesn't really appear in your show, but it's good for working on. And you can lock that so you can't draw on it by accident. And so I've got my first drawing here, and that will give you a sort of a better idea of how you're going to be drawing. And in the vector brushes and the raster brushes, you've got various different parameters. So you've got the basic one, just the size. You can see it's got a certain amount of pressure sensitivity, but you've got certain brushes here which have got a little bit more. They're more tapered at one end, and you get an idea of the profile here. So you can zoom down and see the ballpoint pen one. Bit rubbish. So you've got some nice texture brushes. If you want to really play around with the actual brush you're wanting to actually tweak, so I want this Chinese brush, I want to play around with it, I can double click on here, on this area here, and it opens up a whole palette of various things I can actually tweak the brush. So I can have the minimum size and the maximum size, so it can be a minimum of one particular size and a maximum of another. So that's quite nice. So you can play around with all different parameters. So if I change my, I want to just hide this. So if I change my brush here, I can pick, say, this brush here, double click, and I've got all the options for that particular brush. It's quite nice. And so I'll just highlight all of those and then backspace. The good thing about these brushes are if everything is independent. So once you do a drawing, let's just have a sort of got one drawing, two drawings, little sort of bits in there. Everything stays independent. So you can go to the picker tool and move all the separate components with raster brushes and vector brushes. So you can sort of zoom in there. You can see this is a vector brush because of the sharpness once you blow it up. So that's quite self-explanatory. I mean, there'll be a lot of sort of stuff you've done in TV Paint and in Flash that you'll be able to cross over. But it's quite a nice thing. One good thing about the drawing in this is if you were, say, for instance, to try and get a character that's sort of, you know, okay, just go past the line just to sort of get me into getting a nice sort of drawing together. I don't know who this is. And just to make the line smooth, you can go across the edges. Underneath here, there's a cutter tool, which allows you to just cut off little sections. Really useful. Terrible drawing. So you can zoom right in and really sort of tidy up. Too far. Too far. It's useful, say for instance, if you've really gone over the line there. Selection tool, backspace. The timeline is down here. By default, you've got sort of 60 frames there, and that'll give you a certain amount of time. Let me just zoom this up here. You've got one drawing here and one frame. So if I wanted to do my first drawing here, and I wanted another frame, I could just go to the frame, click on onion skin, it should be there, and it'll show me my previous frame in red. So I can then do my next frame, and see it's showing me a gradient version of all the individual frames. So it actually is creating the frame for me. So I don't have to tell it to create the frame. So it would be green for the frames in front, and red for the ones behind. So let me just, and I can zoom in on here, I believe, with this fella here. Oh no, that's something else. I'm new to this too, of course. There is a way of zooming it out down here. So I can zoom right in and see my frames a little bit better. And like Adobe Animate, you can move with the key shortcuts less than and more than, or full stop and comma. So that's pretty similar. So you could actually just do frame by frame stuff. As you can see here, I'm just moving along. And obviously the same principle, the closer together any drawing is, the smoother and slower it'll be, and the further away, the faster it'll be. It's a beautiful thing. So you can see I'm on frame, what did you tell me? 35, 36, but yet the animation is going to go to 60. So if I do a preview, you can see it's actually playing all the other stuff as well. Or I can tell it to just actually stop here by clicking on this button here next to the frame size. So it will go from frame 1 to frame 36, and that will give me a nice loop. If I wanted to continue, I can click on here. So I'll stop that. So that's just sort of very basic looking at your timeline there. If you want a new drawing, you click on this plus sign and you've got various different things. So a new drawing will bring up this dialog box, and you can decide whether it's vector by default or whether it's bitmap by default. So I'm going to go bitmap, and you can go add and close to create one more drawing. This would be a drawing, say, here that I've done, and that'll be one frame. Or you can click plus, drawing, and then add many. So you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then close. So you can actually create your frames already. So you can actually add to your animation that way. And of course, those frames, apart from the one below where I did the animation, those frames only last for one frame. If I want them to last the entire length, I can highlight them all and click F5 or function F5 on a laptop, and it will stretch them out. You can see they last. And if at any point I want to actually start animating them, I can copy the frame here, and it will give me a new section here. So I could actually create a new empty layer, empty frame. So I click empty frame, and it deletes them at that point. That makes sense. And then delete them. So you can see I've created a sort of a strange thing there. Play that back. So you might get the idea with that. If I wanted to copy a frame, say for instance, let me just hide all of these and just do a new drawing. New drawing. And I'm just going to add and close. So I've got my new drawing here. I've hidden all the other stuff. Say I've got a drawing that I want to actually manipulate. So I've got this box here, and I want it to last right to the end. So F5 will mean that that box will last right to the end. Forget about these ones at the moment. If at any point I want to move that box, I could actually I could create a new one, and it will delete the box and I'll draw another one. Or I could copy that drawing by clicking this, and it gives me a version of it. So I could actually then just move that one. So you can see the previous drawing. I could come to here, copy the previous drawing with this one, and it gives me a version of it. So you can see I've got an animation going that way. Quite nice. When it comes to filling in layers, that's putting a background in, that's quite nice. You'll see here that the color palette has got very, very basic colors in there, where I can add to these whenever I want. So you build a palette for each layer. So a layered drawing will have one set of colors. So if I want a new color, I could click new color, and it gives me new, double click, and I get my color picker. I can do all the stuff there, and then that gives me the new color. So I could double click and name it something that makes sense. So therefore I've got my color. But if I want to go back to actually create a drawing with a new drawing with a background, so I'm just going to add and close, got a new drawing here, and you can see there's two sections here. One is line art and the one is color. It's all in the same frame. It's quite interesting. So you could do a drawing in here. If I want to fill that with anything, I could easily go to red, get the bucket tool and fill it, because it's a sealed, sealed line. Or the smart way would be to actually put it in its own layer. Well, what you can do is you can highlight the artwork, and you click on this button here, which means it creates an artwork color layer. So when you go into there, you can actually drop your color sort of underneath, and you can see a line where it's actually showing you where the bleed will be. So it's actually in a separate layer. So you draw on the line art, and you put your color on the color art. And so, and all these remain separate, so you can still separate them. And like you can do in Adobe Animate now, you've got index colors in this. So if I was to have a whole set of animations, let me just repeat that. So F5, and if I create a new version of it there, highlight it, move it, because I've got to move them both together. Annoying. So that's quite simple. If I were to change the color of this, all I'd need to do is double click on the color itself and change it, and it changes the color. So if I wanted them all to be yellow, I could easily do that. Right, well, when it comes to the kind of brush, so if I do a new drawing, not kind of brush, kind of drawing. So if I wanted bitmap drawings, you've got a different chance to sort of use a whole new set of brushes. So I'm going to add and close the bitmap brush, which has got altogether different sort of a different feel to it. So you've got a lot of different choices here with the bitmap brushes. A bit sort of more, seems a bit more limited. So it's pretty similar in some respects with some of the things you've used. So let's see. Well, I'll leave it at that for now, and I'll just do another one. Now I'll stop the video if I can.